Anna slumped over the drinking table and shouted that her life was completely ruined. Yuri, sitting beside her, tried to persuade her to drink less, since she was already badly drunk. But she wouldn't listen. After finally escaping home and getting married, her first husband had died far too soon. Who could have guessed that her second marriage would fall apart too? The more she thought about it, the more wronged she felt. If this second life was going to turn out like this, she thought she might as well not have lived at all. That's right. This woman who had just gone through her second divorce was Anna. As the eldest daughter of a fallen baron's family, her troubles were only just beginning. In Anna's household, there were two utterly hopeless men, her father and younger brother, who did nothing but gamble all day and lost every last coin the family had. She could only trail after them like a maid, cleaning up one endless mess after another. Just when she was about to collapse under the strain, her sick mother secretly handed her a purse. In a low voice, her mother told her it was the dowry she had saved up. If she didn't give it to her now, she feared she might never get the chance. Anna had wanted to comfort her mother then, telling her to wait until the day she married and place it in her hands personally. But not long after that, her mother passed away. Worse still, that life-saving dowry was eventually used up to pay off gambling debts. With nowhere left to turn, Anna had no choice but to marry into that so-called baronial family for the sake of her own house. Anna's first husband had originally been a once-in-a-century good man, but he was too kind. He was deceived by someone he trusted and lost the entire family fortune. In the end, he couldn't bear it and hanged himself from a tree. After his death, Anna, already destitute, was left with no way out at all. While she was hiding in a tavern, drowning her sorrows, the owner Yuri handed her a special drink. In a soft voice, he said, "Anna, this is the drink you need most today." Who would have thought that after drinking that single glass, Anna would fall straight asleep? When she opened her eyes again, she found herself lying in the bed she had slept in before her marriage. She had actually been reborn, returned to a time before all the tragedies took place. Anna swore to herself that since heaven had given her a chance to start over, she absolutely would not live this way again. She had thought rebirth would let her change her fate. But Anna discovered that the two men in her family never changed. To escape that parasitic father and son pair, she fled in desperation and turned around only to marry the Marquis of Sardinia. She had thought that would finally free her, but just a few hours ago, she had received her second divorce papers. Anna slammed the table in fury and shouted, "Yuri, what exactly was that drink you gave me? If it weren't for that glass, would I have had to live through this hell all over again?" She even suspected Yuri might be some kind of wizard who could see through time. But Yuri remained completely calm and asked her, "If everyone thinks you two were the model couple, then why did you get divorced?" The moment that man was mentioned, Anna's reaction said it all. Things were clearly not that simple. At the mention of her former husband, Anna grew furious. The man had been a complete mama's boy. He couldn't even write up the divorce petition himself. She had to go and handle the paperwork in person. Even more outrageous, she had worked herself to the bone taking care of that household, only for him to turn around and cheat on her. Even Yuri was stunned when he heard that, and asked who the other woman was. Through gritted teeth, Anna answered Grand Princess Sabina. Yuri let out a helpless sigh. After all, when a princess asks you to marry her, probably not many men could refuse. Anna collapsed onto the table, feeling that perhaps happiness really had nothing to do with her in this life. Just as she sank into self-doubt, Yuri gently interrupted her. In a warm voice, he said, "Anna, don't think so little of yourself." Then he pushed another glass toward her. Anna stared at it and hesitated. It was as if her whole body had suddenly been set ablaze. She shot to her feet, slammed the table, and shouted at Yuri, "I don't need this kind of thing. I've had enough of this life, where everything starts over again. I may as well just rot." Faced with her breakdown, Yuri didn't get angry. Instead, he looked at her with gentle eyes and said softly, "This time will be different. I'm certain you'll be happy this time." He told her that no one in this world deserved to suffer. Just because life had gone badly before didn't mean she was doomed to misery forever. Hearing those words, Anna froze in place, unable to say a thing. Yuri not only gave her the drink, but also handed her a thick envelope. When Anna opened it, she was completely dumbfounded. Inside was a property deed. Yuri instructed her that if she ever ran into trouble she couldn't solve in the future, she should go to that place. Someone there would surely help her. And that wasn't all. He took out another slip of paper covered with the winning lottery numbers from 5 years earlier. It was like he had handed her a cheat code for life. Anna couldn't understand why he was being so good to her. Yuri smiled and said, "Because you've helped the tavern earn quite a bit of money. So this time, please live only for yourself." Looking at the drink in front of her, Anna's heart was in turmoil. What if she failed again? But when she met Yuri's gaze, she wavered in the end. There was nothing left to lose anyway. Gritting her teeth, Anna took the glass that would decide her fate. She declared loudly, "This time, I will find happiness." As she tilted her head back and drained it in one gulp. Standing in the shifting light, Yuri watched her in silence and softly said, "I wish you happiness." Then he left behind one cryptic promise: "If by then, I'm still by your side." As the alcohol took effect, Anna felt herself plunging rapidly downward. In the darkness, she reflected on her previous 2 lives. The reason they had failed was her own weakness and hesitation. Just as she was preparing to welcome a new life, a rough shout suddenly rang in her ears. "Anna, why aren't you pouring tea and making food already?" That familiar, hateful voice made her instantly realize she really had returned to that nightmare beginning. Had it been because she had been too agreeable before? Or because she could never let go of those so-called family ties? This time, Anna did not swallow her anger in silence. She exploded. Shouting at him to get out, she drove the man straight out the door. She had held that punch back for 2 whole lifetimes. She remembered her mother's final words, "You must be happy." For Anna, that had been the only warmth in her life. This time, she promised her mother and herself that she would never let others control her again. She would stand tall and live only for herself. No one would shake her resolve again. "Only I can make myself happy." Anna took all her belongings and left without looking back. Sitting on the train, taking her far away, she silently thanked Yuri in her heart. "Thank you for giving me this chance. Someday, I'll repay you properly." Following the address on the deed, she finally found the building. But when she took a closer look, Anna froze. The more she looked, the more familiar it seemed. Wasn't this the tavern owner's bar? He had actually given her his own shop outright. So the person Yuri had said would help her, could it have been himself all along? Now everything made sense. Anna took a deep breath and raised her hand to knock on the door. "Excuse me, is anyone there?" The door wasn't even locked. It opened with a light push. Anna peered inside cautiously. The place was completely silent, not a single person in sight. But when she stepped in, she discovered the place was unbelievably filthy. Scraps of paper and random junk had been thrown everywhere. This was the shop Yuri had given her. Who dared trash the place like this? The more Anna thought about it, the angrier she got, and she gathered up her skirt and stormed upstairs. She was determined to see which fool had turned the place into this disaster. She was going to settle the score with him properly. But just as she reached the staircase, she stepped on something soft underfoot. Before she could react, a muffled groan came from the floor. Anna froze completely. Beneath that heap of clothes, there was actually a person. The man being stepped on finally couldn't take it anymore. Throwing off the blanket, he sat up furiously and snapped. "Following me is one thing, but you even stepped on me? Don't you think that's a bit too much?" Startled by the sudden accusation, Anna stood there dumbstruck. The two stared at each other in utter awkwardness. The man stared at her for a while before his tone softened a little. In confusion, he asked, "Who are you?" Looking at the pink-haired young man in front of her, Anna felt waves crashing through her mind. That face, that hair color, could this be Yuri? It was actually the tavern owner's younger self. What on earth was going on? Anna directly pulled out the deed. In black and white, it was written clearly enough. The house now belonged to her. Yuri stared at the document in her hand for a long time, unable to process it. Anyone would have been stunned by this. Anna had no intention of being polite. She got straight to the point and asked when he planned to vacate the property. Yuri's attitude was just as hard as hers. He said this house was his home, so why should he hand it over just because she said so? Pointing at the garbage all over the room, Anna said, "You call this a home?" But Yuri plainly didn't care. The best part was that he immediately turned suspicious and said, "If that deed is real, then aren't you more likely a burglar?" After that exchange, Anna was numb. His personality was awful. She thought she was meeting the younger version of the kind tavern owner she remembered, but her fantasy shattered on the spot. Was this really the same person as the gentle Yuri in her memory? Anna felt deeply conflicted. The frivolous man before her was the complete opposite of the composed tavern owner she remembered. And worst of all, Yuri didn't remember her at all. He was the most familiar stranger imaginable. Still, with that distinctive pink hair and blue eyes, there probably wasn't another person like him in the world. She decided to test him directly. Staring into his eyes, Anna asked, "You're actually a mage, aren't you?" Yuri instantly broke composure and sprayed out the tea in his mouth. That reaction was all too real. He denied it at first, then added that he really had been one before. Looking at the garbage-filled room, Anna immediately invented a whole dramatic story in her head, thinking he must have suffered some kind of blow and ended up hiding here as an unemployed drifter. Yuri's face darkened. He thought to himself that this girl really had sharp tongue. Hadn't they only just met today? Only then did Anna explain the truth. The person who had given her the deed had also been a pink-haired mage, and he had looked exactly like the Yuri standing before her. Yuri insisted that there was absolutely no such person in his family. Seeing force wouldn't work, he abruptly switched tactics and started acting pitiful, saying he was just a jobless pauper. "Do you really have the heart to throw me out?" But Anna wasn't falling for that at all. Instead, she immediately offered him an attractive condition. "If you give me the house, I'll get you a job." Yuri was completely stunned. Brimming with confidence, Anna declared that she was going to open a flower shop there, and Yuri would be the very first employee she hired. Yuri froze after hearing that. Open a flower shop here and even hire him as an employee? The whole plan sounded unreliable from start to finish. He couldn't help complaining. In times like these, aside from those silly rich nobles who would waste money on flowers, Anna grinned and immediately threw out the temptation of room and board. In truth, she had already planned everything. As Anna returned through rebirth, she held the strongest prophecy of all. The empire was about to enter a golden age of prosperity that would last 5 whole years. By then, newly rich people would be everywhere, with money overflowing from their pockets and nowhere to spend it. How could she possibly let an opportunity like that pass? In Anna's eyes, she wouldn't be growing flowers at all. She'd be growing piles of silver. This was a sure-win business she had concluded from the lessons of 2 lifetimes. Patting her chest, she promised Yuri he could rest completely at ease. At worst, she'd just pay the rent on time. Looking at this little money lover, Yuri's tone suddenly turned playful. "If we're going to live together, don't you think that's dangerous?" He deliberately leaned closer and asked Anna, "What if I try something?" The mood changed in an instant, but Anna was only stunned for a second before calmly replying, "You're not that kind of person." This time, Yuri was the one left speechless. This girl really did have a broad mind. Yuri pressed her, asking why she was so sure. Anna nearly blurted out master, but could only awkwardly say it was intuition. To reassure Yuri completely, she even declared on the spot that love and marriage were things only idiots with water in their brains would bother with. Unexpectedly, that startlingly clear-headed statement struck Yuri right in a sore spot. With a self-mocking smile, he said that the closer someone was to you, the less they deserve your trust. Since they were both so cold-hearted in that way, Yuri stopped struggling with the idea and decided on the spot to hand the house over to Anna. Going to court would only be troublesome anyway, and he really did want to try living differently instead of staying an idle drifter forever. Yuri formally extended his hand. "A pleasure working with you, Miss Anna." Just like that, the two reached an agreement. Her new life in the capital had finally begun. Although business filled her thoughts for now, Anna still held a secret in her heart. Once life settled down, she was determined to find that master again. But just then, things suddenly took on a strange turn. Yuri hid alone in a room, holding another deed in his hand. The more he looked at it, the colder his back felt, whether it was the signature on it or the worn, damaged edges of the paper. It was exactly the same as Anna's copy. How could there possibly be 2 identical deeds in the world at the same time? Just who was this woman? Who would have thought that Yuri, now working odd jobs in a flower shop, was actually a top-tier archmage? At that very moment, the magic tower was already in chaos. Formations had collapsed. Magical energy was out of control, and everyone there was begging this revered troublemaker to come back at once. But Yuri had no mind for any of that. Right now, only one thing occupied his head. Housework was exhausting. After just one day, it felt like his bones were falling apart. At the thought that tomorrow Anna would surely drag him into cleaning the second floor too, Yuri's head started to ache. Instead of continuing as a laborer tomorrow, he might as well take a shortcut now. He lightly snapped his fingers, and the once chaotic room instantly became spotless and neat. That was the power of an archmage. Even when used for housework, it was overkill. The more Yuri thought about it, the more wrong it felt. Within the entire empire, someone with magical power on that level should, in theory, only be himself. And yet, just at that moment, the formation at the magic tower had mysteriously shattered, and then that woman called Anna had suddenly appeared carrying a mountain of mysteries. None of this could possibly be a coincidence. The mysterious burst of magic that shattered the formation had to be connected to her. Although it would have been easier to simply drive her away and then have someone secretly monitor her, Yuri didn't want to alert the people at the magic tower. Rather than let others interfere, he decided it was better to keep this dangerous woman by his side and watch her personally as the archmage to see just how many secrets she was hiding. In the blink of an eye, a week passed. The sign for the flower shop was finally hung up. All the hard work of the past few days had not been for nothing. Just then, Yuri suddenly leaned in and called out, "Big sister." That intimate form of address left Anna completely stunned, and the brat still looked utterly innocent, saying he'd already been calling her that for several days. Now, it was Anna's turn to question reality. Yuri's mouth was sweet enough. He said she felt like an older sister to him, and then asked with a perfectly innocent face if she hated it. Anna couldn't handle that at all. She thought the title was far too mushy, but looking at his aggrieved expression, she really had no way to deal with him. In the end, she could only wave helplessly and tell him to just call her by her name from now on. This time, Yuri got exactly what he wanted. He immediately took it a step further and even skipped the honorifics. Yuri really did know how to brew coffee. He made Anna so happy that she even praised him for having talent as a barista. But whenever someone was being unusually attentive, it usually meant no good. Yuri saw through her at a glance. This woman was definitely scheming something. Sure enough, Anna wanted to drag him along to the flower market. But once they arrived, Yuri looked like someone seeing the world for the first time. Everything seemed new and fascinating to him. Anna was already planning to grow flowers herself in the future, but Yuri was secretly worried. Just cleaning out that messy rooftop would be a nightmare. Seeing how freely she was spending on renovations, Yuri worried she might not even have money left to buy flowers. In response, Anna simply tossed out a huge bag of gold coins. Now, it was Yuri's turn to stare in shock. Who could have guessed this windfall had been decided 5 years earlier? With the mysterious numbers her master had given her, she'd essentially achieved financial freedom in one day. Yuri's intuition was frighteningly sharp. With a casual guess, he asked if she had won the lottery, startling Anna so badly that she hurriedly played it off and said it was a secret. Though she didn't admit it, Yuri had already begun to grow suspicious. There was no sensible explanation for it. Yuri had assumed she only wanted to buy some roses, but Anna swept her arm grandly and bought out every white rose in the market. Yuri muttered in bewilderment that white roses were usually used for funerals, so was it really appropriate to buy them now? But Anna just gave a mysterious smile and said these flowers were merely her raw materials, so he shouldn't get the wrong idea. Before Yuri even had time to process that, the sight before his eyes left him utterly stunned. The plain white roses had all transformed into dreamy blue. Once these rare blue roses were released, the entire flower market would probably explode. Staring at the dreamy blue rose in front of him, Yuri's eyes went wide. He wanted to ask Anna for one to decorate his room with, but she refused immediately. These were all rare goods meant to be sold. She couldn't spare even one. Although Yuri failed to get one for free, his respect for her deepened completely. In truth, the principle behind it was absurdly simple. Cut the stems of white roses and let them absorb a specially made blue dye. But the dye was outrageously expensive. Ordinary people simply couldn't afford to play with something like that. Who could have known that this color, which didn't exist naturally at all, would soon sweep through high society and drive every noble lady mad? When that happened, the first people selling these flowers would absolutely earn a fortune. This really was a hugely profitable business with guaranteed returns. Although the blue rose idea was a great success, Anna knew perfectly well that she had actually stolen the concept from someone else. In this life, she might be the first to do it, but her conscience still prickled a little. But there was no time to dwell on that now, because a second big problem arrived immediately after. Looking at the mountains of white roses filling the room, Yuri asked the most crucial question of all. Did they really have to dye every one of these flowers by hand? Staring at the endless sea of flowers, Anna realized just how terrifying the workload was. She quickly tried to encourage Yuri, telling him to hold on. But before that motivational speech could even fully land, Yuri looked at the mountain of hard labor in front of him and nearly fainted on the spot. For the sake of this batch of blue roses, Anna practically turned into a workaholic, laboring for days on end before she could finally stop to catch her breath. Yuri couldn't bear to watch anymore, so he hurried over with a cup of hot coffee and urged her to rest, afraid she'd collapse before she ever made any money. But Anna was utterly resolute. Since she had decided to open this shop, she had already prepared herself for this much hardship. She had no intention of backing down. Looking at the failed, poorly dyed roses on the table, Yuri felt strangely conflicted. If it were him, he probably would never have endured such tedious and complicated work. He suddenly murmured, "I'm sorry." That inexplicable apology left Anna, who was just about to drink her coffee, completely baffled. Yuri sighed that if only he could use magic, this kind of physical labor would be finished in no time. But with one sentence, Anna brought him right back to reality. Hiring a mage costs too much. Right now, we have to save money. Hearing that, Yuri wanted to help more with the chores, but Anna was very clear-headed about such things. She said directly that Yuri was an employee, not a servant. She hated people who treated others' kindness as something they were entitled to. Those words left Yuri genuinely taken aback. Looking at the serious girl before him, he felt a flicker of envy. He envied the fact that she had something she could devote herself to completely like this. Just when the mood was turning a little emotional, Anna suddenly changed the tone and smiled as she praised Yuri's daily coffee, saying that little achievements in ordinary life like that deserved to be cherished too. Yuri stayed silent for a long while, then suddenly reached out for the white roses and decided to help Anna with the work. He said he was only doing it because she refused to sleep, so he had no choice but to stay and lend a hand. But as they talked, Yuri casually changed the way he addressed her and called her simply Anna. That sudden closeness caught her off guard. Though on the surface she pretended not to care and casually said he could call her whatever he wanted, inside her heart rippled. After all, that special nickname had once only been used by the people closest to her. Looking at Yuri's serious profile, it felt as if something between them had quietly changed. A few mornings later, the real main event finally arrived. On this day, the blue roses would officially be unveiled to the world. Anna stayed in the shop, too nervous for words. This was the chance she had gained by wagering her entire third life on turning everything around. Just then, a voice sounded from outside the door. She almost jumped up in excitement. Wasn't this the grand opening she had been waiting for? Holding the blue roses she had prepared so carefully, she put on her brightest professional smile and loudly welcomed her very first customer. But when she saw the visitor's face clearly, the smile froze on her lips. The intense sense of déjà vu was so strong that she even wondered if she was dreaming. Before she could speak, however, the other person frowned first and coldly asked who she was. Staring at that familiar face, the name Yuri almost slipped from Anna's lips. What on earth was going on? Time rewound to a few hours earlier. It was the morning of the flower shop's opening day. Anna woke to the smell of food. Yuri had already prepared breakfast and had even thoughtfully added salad. But for Anna, this was practically torture. Smiling, Yuri reminded her that opening day would be busy, so she had to eat it all. And just as the two were encouraging each other, Anna suddenly noticed something was wrong. "What's this?" Yuri was counting flower petals. He called it an opening day fortune-telling ritual, but really he was just nervous. The moment Anna saw it, she exploded. The floral materials she had stayed up all night preparing were being wasted like this. Yuri hurried to calm her, saying the divination result was excellent and that something good was definitely going to happen today. But before he could finish speaking, he used buying ingredients at the market as an excuse and vanished in a flash. Leaving Anna standing there alone, She began to suspect that this guy was just trying to shirk work and run off. She was still wondering what the good thing Yuri had mentioned could possibly be. Could there really be an important customer? Just then, a man pushed the door open and walked in. Anna instinctively called out Yuri's name, but regretted it the moment the words left her mouth. Though he looked exactly the same, the aura of the man before her was completely different. Eugene spoke coldly. "I'm asking you, who exactly are you?" Now, it was Anna's turn to be shocked. The other party clearly didn't recognize her at all. She quickly explained that she was the shop owner. But Eugene's attention was completely captured by the blue roses on the counter. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, Anna promptly switched into sales mode and began enthusiastically praising her own blue roses. She even brought up the little prince to try and persuade this distinguished customer to buy a bouquet and start a trend. But he clearly wasn't here for that. He coldly interrupted her and asked directly whether there was another owner of the shop. Anna's heart sank. It seemed this man really had come for Yuri. On closer inspection, the two looked almost identical. They were most likely brothers, without a doubt. It seemed Yuri's identity really was far from ordinary. This was trouble. The other party had clearly come prepared. Seeing the aristocratic air radiating from the man, Anna was certain that he was the true head of the household. Eugene checked the time and saw it was still well before lunch. Out of patience and unwilling to wait any longer, he turned to leave. That made Anna panic. A major customer had finally walked through the door. How could she let him slip away just like that? She rushed forward to block him and, forcing confidence, made up some absurd business rule on the spot, saying that anyone who entered the store was required to make a purchase. Eugene was so incredulous that he laughed. He asked if she was trying to teach him how to do business. Yet seeing how hard Anna was trying, Eugene unexpectedly relented. "Fine, let's see what you can sell me." She had thought he was a big customer, but the moment he opened his mouth, he turned into a harsh critic. He dismissed the shop's entire arrangement as worthless. Picking up one blue rose, he said bluntly that Anna was far too full of herself, and that relying on a single kind of flower would have her shutting down sooner or later. That overpowering aura of a domineering noble nearly left Anna unable to breathe. But his final remark, "You won't sell anything," completely awakened her competitive spirit. She clenched her fists and immediately turned the tables. "If you say my promotion is lacking, then someone of your status walking outside with flowers, wouldn't that be live advertising on the spot?" Eugene was utterly dumbfounded. Asking a grown man like him to stroll the streets carrying a bouquet? This woman's train of thought was even more outrageous than his own sharp tongue. Since he didn't want to carry a bouquet, Anna instantly changed plans and pinned a blue rose to Eugene's chest as a boutonniere. Surprisingly, the flower did suit his bearing rather well. Even this picky nobleman admitted that it wasn't bad at all. Seizing the moment, Anna told him to take a look around the shop while she put together some additional flowers. Though Eugene said he hadn't decided whether to buy anything yet, his body honestly remained where it was. But just as he was about to look around, Yuri pushed the door open and walked in carrying a basket. The moment the brothers met eyes, the air in the flower shop froze solid. Anna still hadn't caught on and was about to introduce them, but the atmosphere was obviously wrong. This wasn't a customer walking in. It was a battlefield on the verge of erupting. The moment Yuri spoke, there was gunpowder in his voice. He demanded to know what Eugene was doing here, and reminded him that he had told him countless times not to show up again. Eugene, however, remained all business. He said he had only come to confirm his younger brother's safety. If Yuri would just obediently return to the main estate, none of them would need to waste words here. At this, Yuri let out a cold laugh, remarking that Eugene hadn't changed at all, still so fond of telling him what to do. Still, the fact that Eugene had shown up at a small shop like this was entirely unlike his usual style. Seeing that words were going nowhere, Yuri simply issued an order to leave and even wrapped an arm around Anna right in front of Eugene. That sudden, intimate gesture stunned everyone present. Yuri was clearly declaring his claim right there in front of him. Before leaving, Eugene said, "I'll be back." And the way he said it sounded nothing like an ordinary farewell. As soon as he was gone, Anna hurried to ask who he was. But Yuri shut the door and only asked whether she had been troubled just now. Smiling, he said Eugene was someone she didn't need to care about. But Anna understood very well that Yuri wasn't just trying not to worry her. He also didn't want her asking any further questions. Elsewhere, the carriage had already started moving. Sitting inside, Eugene's voice turned exceptionally cold. He said Yuri looked healthy enough, but still had no intention of going home. His attendant respectfully addressed him as Count Ace-Launch. It seemed the brothers' identities were even more astonishing than Anna had imagined. But only after getting into the carriage did the dignified Count suddenly realize that in the middle of arguing with his brother, he had forgotten the blue rose was still pinned to his chest, and he had walked out without paying for it. A Count dining and dashing at a flower shop? If word of that got out, it would be absurd. But on second thought, that was actually a good excuse. It seemed it wouldn't be long before he found himself making another trip to that flower shop. After a whole day of work, the shop was finally about to close. Yuri comforted Anna, saying that for the first day of business, these results were already pretty good. But Anna still felt uneasy. The business didn't seem as booming as she had expected. Could that man have been right? Was her current way of operating simply unworkable? Yuri had clearly thought of those words too, but he said nothing. That unusual silence made Anna realize the matter wasn't simple. She wanted to talk to him seriously, but Yuri immediately went into evasive mode, fussing over dinner while deliberately steering the conversation toward what they should eat. That tactic worked for the moment, but after they had eaten, Anna had no intention of letting him off so easily. If there were no customers coming in, then they had to go out and find them. She proposed that the next day, they go directly onto the street to promote the flowers. The moment Yuri heard that, his whole being radiated refusal, and he even tried to back out. But Anna was firm. She had even prepared a push card already. It looked like he had no choice but to join tomorrow's outdoor expansion plan. In the end, Yuri didn't let Anna go alone. He said that since they were partners, they should sell these blue roses together. But he had clearly underestimated his own destructive power. The moment they set up their stall on the street, things spiraled completely out of control. Every noble lady passing by stopped in her tracks. One after another, they whispered to each other, unable to take their eyes away. Yuri immediately felt uneasy. He realized everyone wasn't staring at the flowers at all. They were staring at his face. The business was already veering in the wrong direction. Anna, standing nearby, wasn't surprised in the slightest. After all, the effect of using a handsome man as bait had been entirely within her expectations. Sure enough, customers were already coming over to strike up conversations. Though their interest wasn't really in the flowers, as long as the flowers sold, then the first step was a success. The moment the blue roses appeared, they stunned every passing lady of society. No one had ever seen such a rare variety. And on top of that, the one selling them was an exceptionally handsome man. Yuri, as a living signboard, was simply too effective. Not only did the flowers sell rapidly, but some people even invited him out for tea on the spot. Just as he awkwardly struggled to refuse, Anna finally came back after finishing the formalities. Seeing the wildly successful scene before her, she practically bloomed with joy. Using Yuri's looks to draw customers really had been the best decision she'd made in this life. Although Yuri was having trouble handling such enthusiasm, Anna had no intention of stopping. Since she had such a good resource, she absolutely intended to make full use of it. Business had finally picked up, but this was only the beginning. The next plan would be the real highlight. The blue roses had become a full-blown sensation on the street. Noble ladies practically all carried a bouquet. The business was excellent, but Anna didn't relax in the slightest. She kept chattering at Yuri, complaining that the sales pace was still too slow. After all, if these flowers got stuck in their hands, all that would be left was wasted silver. Yuri couldn't help grumbling that she was too greedy. Back when she was hoarding stock, nobody could stop her, and now she was suddenly worried about the flowers wilting. As the two bickered while summing up their experience, it became clear that doing business really wasn't easy. Just as they were busy counting money, several unfamiliar faces appeared in the distance. A nobleman wearing a monocle was asking around everywhere about a young man with pink hair. From the look of it, they were obviously here for Yuri. It seemed their peaceful street stall life was about to be shaken up again. People from the Magic Tower had indeed followed them to the street. Yuri recognized those old acquaintances at a glance. He instinctively moved backward, clearly having no desire at all to greet them. Anna noticed immediately that something was wrong. She understood that everyone had people they'd rather not see. If they're going to hide, then they had to do it properly. She casually grabbed a piece of cloth and several flowers, and before Yuri could even react, she plopped a gorgeous flower hat right onto his head. This not only blocked him from view, but completely changed his whole aura as well. Yuri was stunned, but Anna was delighted. She said this was a floral accessory, something that could help disguise him while also serving as a new product they could develop. It was killing two birds with one stone. Even if the people from the Magic Tower walked right past them, they probably wouldn't recognize this flower-selling fairy at all. Looking at the flower hat on his head, Yuri felt unexpectedly moved. He realized that although Anna usually seemed carefree and rough around the edges, at crucial moments, she was more thoughtful than anyone. While the two of them were discussing how to expand the business, that returning customer from earlier suddenly came back again. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She thought there must be some problem with the flower's quality. But the moment the customer spoke, she dropped a bombshell. It turned out the customer was a maid from a ducal household. She had given the blue roses she'd purchased earlier to her mistress, and the Duchess Murphy had fallen in love with them at first sight. She had immediately decided that all the flowers for her upcoming grand party would be replaced with this kind. Now that really was hitting the jackpot. What did an order from a duchess mean? It meant breaking directly into the top tier of aristocratic society. But with an order this large, could the two of them, little more than street sellers, really deliver on time? The ducal household opened with a request for 5,000 stems. The number nearly sent Yuri to his grave. But the moment Anna heard there was big money involved, she lit up completely. Not only did she accept without hesitation, she even voluntarily shortened the delivery time for the client, promising they could deliver by tomorrow night. Yuri couldn't stop her even if he tried. This wasn't taking an order. It was signing up for death. Watching Anna cheering and celebrating, Yuri was already on the verge of total collapse. In his heart, he was screaming that he wanted to use magic to conjure the flowers outright. Otherwise, with several thousand flowers to prepare, even dying of exhaustion wouldn't be enough to finish them all. But the deal had already been struck, so they could only steal themselves and do it. Who would have thought that this little flower shop business had already attracted the attention of the distant imperial palace? Under the night sky, the palace glowed with lights. The clever Count Eugene had only just stepped into the palace when Grand Princess Sabina fixed her gaze on him. Her Highness was not someone to be trifled with. The moment they met, she began putting on airs and blaming Eugene for arriving late. Though Eugene looked very much like a man doing forced labor, he still had to maintain noble decorum on the surface. Patiently, he offered his greetings, though inwardly, he probably only wanted to finish his business and leave. But Sabina's next words forced him to pay close attention. She said she was in an especially good mood today because the maid she had sent to handle an errand had brought back some interesting news. On the little, unremarkable end-of-side street, she had found something amusing. In that flower shop, a pink-haired young man of exceptional beauty had been seen. Eugene had been in the palace the entire time and could not possibly have been on the street. Once Sabina applied the process of elimination, the answer became obvious. Who else could it be besides Eugene's long-missing younger brother? Excitedly, she called out the name Yuri Ace-Launch. She even affectionately referred to him as my adorable little mage. Eugene fell silent for a moment, then asked whether identifying someone based only on hair color was a little too careless. Sabina gave a cold snort. In the entire capital, aside from your family, who else would have hair like that? This time, he won't be getting away. Sabina laid her cards on the table. Since you already know in your heart, don't pretend to be confused in front of me. Eugene said nothing and prepared to leave. Behind him, Sabina coldly reminded him, I will continue searching for Yuri's whereabouts. You'd better move quickly too. Don't drag your feet. After all, you certainly want to see your precious younger brother as soon as possible too, don't you? While the struggle here remained hidden beneath the surface, the little Prince flower shop in the city was exploding with excitement over a rare kind of blue rose. Customers were all talking about it. This color hardly looked real at all. Could some sort of magic have been used? Hearing all this praise, Anna only smiled to herself. If this really counted as magic, then it was nature's own work. Thanks to that batch of blue roses, the Duchess's party had been a great success. Now noble ladies all over the city were placing orders like crazy. To sum it up in one sentence, the flower shop was completely sold out. Anna excitedly celebrated this unprecedented bumper harvest with Yuri. Yuri, however, was obviously exhausted. After greeting her, he immediately went back to his room to catch up on sleep. Just as Anna was about to rummage for ingredients and make dinner, the bell at the door suddenly rang. At this hour, who could it be? Confused, she opened the door, and the instant she saw who had come, her whole body froze in place. Eugene had personally come to the shop. Startled, Anna hurried to explain that Yuri wasn't here right now. But Eugene appeared perfectly calm. He said it was fine. Today he had come specifically to see her. Anna immediately grew uneasy. What good could come from him looking for me? In the next second, Eugene pulled out a heavy pouch. He said it was payment for the roses from last time. He'd left in a hurry and forgotten to give it. Anna opened it skeptically and was shocked. This wasn't payment. It was enough money to buy the whole flower shop. Faced with such a huge amount of money, Anna immediately said she couldn't possibly accept it for nothing. But Eugene replied that this was an investment. After all, blue roses were now the talk of the entire city. Right after that, he took out a box of chocolates, saying it was to thank her for agreeing to his request. That left Anna completely baffled. When had she ever agreed to any request of his? Watching Eugene's chain of moves, she felt increasingly unsettled. What exactly was this man plotting? Eugene finally stopped beating around the bush. He said his request was actually very simple. He hoped Anna would help him keep an eye on Yuri's movements at all times. So after all the money and gifts, it turned out he was trying to recruit a commercial spy. Eugene's request sounded very strange. He wanted Anna to keep watch over Yuri and make sure he didn't stand out too much. The moment Anna heard that, her attitude changed instantly. She thought Eugene had come to make trouble, believing that selling flowers on the street had disgraced the family name. She pushed the bag of gold back toward him and said in a very firm tone that how they sold flowers was their own business. No matter how much money he offered, she would never restrict her partner's actions, unless Eugene could give her a truly convincing reason. As Eugene remained silent, Anna keenly sensed that things were far more complicated than they seemed. Something serious must have happened between those two. At last, Eugene told her the truth. In his eyes, his younger brother Yuri had been a genius since childhood, able to do with ease what others never could. But that excellence had only harmed him. Fait m'attaque de danger. Yuri had soon been targeted by a group of people with wicked intentions. Back then, his disappearance had not been youthful stubbornness at all. He had fled desperately just to stay alive. Lowering his voice, Eugene finally said that there was now an extremely dangerous person searching frantically for Yuri. The reason he wanted Anna to watch over his brother was because he absolutely could not allow that person to find Yuri again. Eugene practically pleaded with her, asking Anna to make sure Yuri was hidden well and not let those people find him. Anna felt that if they were real brothers, then whatever needed saying should be said face to face. Why resort to this kind of secret surveillance? But Eugene could only smile bitterly. He said that in Yuri's eyes, he was probably no different from those enemies, and Yuri would never listen to a single explanation from him. Though Anna refused to take money to do such a thing, feeling it would damage their relationship too much, she still agreed to keep an eye on Yuri's safety. Before Eugene left, he casually remarked that Yuri had originally been the heir to the Count's title. No wonder he learned everything so quickly. Now it was Anna's turn to be dumbfounded. The young man bustling around the flower shop had such an illustrious real identity. The surname Ace-Launch represented far more than just the Count's title. It belonged to the Empire's greatest top-tier merchant house. The eldest son of such a powerful family had abandoned a life of privilege to become a homeless drifter. Just how terrible had the disaster of those years been? But then an even worse thought surfaced. Anna suddenly remembered that in a few years, Eugene would collapse from serious illness and disappear entirely from high society. If Eugene truly died, then what would happen to Yuri? Worst of all, at that time he had no heir. The entire family would be finished. In the memories of her previous two lives, the name Count Ace-Launch had only ever appeared in newspaper gossip columns. He had never intersected with Anna's life at all. Who could have guessed that in this life, the two of them would actually be speaking face to face? Looking at the man in front of her, he didn't resemble a patient at all. Eugene politely said goodbye and prepared to leave first. Anna quickly nodded and watched this important figure walk away. Though she still felt uneasy, knowing he would fall seriously ill and vanish a few years later, there was no point thinking about it now. After all, no one could be certain of the future. But just as Eugene was about to go, Anna still couldn't hold back. She suddenly blurted out, "Please, take good care of your health." Those words only confused him. Why had things suddenly turned sentimental for no reason? Anna hurriedly patched it up, saying that as long as someone lived long enough, good things could happen, and besides, he and Yuri would make up someday. Eugene laughed outright after hearing that. He thought it was truly fortunate that Yuri had such an interesting friend by his side. He promised he would come often in the future, and before leaving he deliberately emphasized that he would definitely return. Watching his departing figure, Anna could only hope that the ending in this life would be different. Eugene had not gone far before Yuri stopped him. The moment the brothers met again, the air was thick with hostility. Yuri sneered and mocked him, saying he was still the same as ever, unable to listen to anyone else's advice. He had even overheard the goodbye just now. Eugene got straight to the point and demanded to know what purpose Yuri had in getting close to Anna. After all, Yuri never allowed outsiders near him. He warned him not to drag an innocent person into trouble because of his own selfishness. But Yuri struck back immediately with a fatal counter, exposing the fact that Eugene had also been secretly watching his every move. The situation stiffened completely. Neither brother was willing to give way. Eugene's tone suddenly changed. He demanded that Yuri stop fooling around and return to the family at once, because Grand Princess Sabina had already discovered this place. He even used Anna as leverage, warning Yuri that if he didn't leave, that innocent girl would be dragged into it, and then no one would be able to protect her. Faced with that threat, Yuri remained unusually calm. He directly exposed Eugene's lie. If you're so determined to protect me, then why is the woman who ruined me still sitting securely as the model on the Merchant Guild's promotional flyers? You talk about sheltering me from the storm, and yet because of power and influence, you still couldn't bear to let go of that devil's hand. That kind of hypocritical protection is disgusting. This time Yuri's attitude was extremely firm. He directly rejected Eugene's demand and even left him with a ruthless warning. Stay away from Anna. He warned him if he didn't want Anna to end up as miserable as he had one day, then he'd better stay out of Anna's life. After Eugene left, Yuri stood alone under the moonlight and finally spoke the secret he had kept buried in his heart. The reason he had stayed by Anna's side all this time was never for selfish reasons. It was to unravel the magic circle carved onto her body. What exactly was that mysterious formation, and what consequences would it bring? Even Yuri still couldn't see through it. While researching it, Yuri discovered a detail so terrifying it unsettled even him. The complex magic circle on Anna's body was drawn exactly the same way as his own. That unique logic and brushwork were probably something only he himself would use in the entire world. Could it be that this mysterious spell had actually been cast by his own hand? But strangely, Yuri had absolutely no memory of it. What had gone wrong in the middle of all this? Since he couldn't make sense of it for now, he decided not to dwell on it. As long as he stayed by her side, the truth would surface sooner or later. Just then, Anna, busy working in the flower shop, looked up and ran into the returning Yuri. He had just dealt with trouble outside and had planned to slip quietly back to his room, but the moment he stepped inside, Anna caught him red-handed. When she demanded to know where he'd been in the middle of the night, he could only awkwardly make up a lie, saying he'd gone out to stretch. Instead, he got dragged into helping prepare roses. Watching Anna fumble clumsily, Yuri couldn't help laughing. She tried to wipe the paint off the tip of her nose, only to smear it all over her face instead. In that moment, all the heavy secrets and threats from before seemed to vanish. Only the sound of their playful bickering remained in the flower shop. Yuri knew very well these peaceful days would end sooner or later, but before that parting truly came, he only wanted this moment to slow down. Just a little more. The once peaceful entrance of the flower shop was suddenly blocked by several unwelcome guests. Yuri hadn't even figured out what was happening and thought they were just ordinary customers. But the next second, Sabina rushed in, shouting Yuri's name as she threw herself into his arms. Sabina cried out excitedly, saying she'd finally found her great mage. Yuri froze on the spot. He never expected this troublesome woman to chase him all the way here. But what worried him most now was Anna, standing nearby and witnessing everything. Seeing how shaken she looked, Yuri knew things had truly blown up this time. Sabina was the Empire's most beloved little princess. Everyone thought she was flawless. But who could have imagined that this lofty woman had stolen my husband? I decisively chose divorce, and after drinking that glass of wine, I was reborn. I thought that in this life, I could stay far away and never have anything to do with her again. But fate played a cruel joke. Sabina not only appeared again, she even clung tightly to Yuri. What exactly was going on? Yuri shoved Sabina away at once and hurriedly asked whether Anna was hurt, even suspecting Sabina had come to cause trouble. Sabina was completely furious now. She was obviously the injured party, Yet Yuri wouldn't even give her a chance to explain before taking Anna by the hand and try to leave. Enraged, Sabina shouted after him, asking if he'd gone mad helping an outsider, and threatened that she'd make him regret it. Yuri coldly replied with a simple goodbye. Then, with a snap of his fingers, he sent the overbearing princess away. Gently, Yuri told Anna not to be afraid. If that woman ever dared show up again, she had to tell him immediately. But before he could finish, Yuri froze. He noticed Anna was crying and hurriedly asked in a panic what was wrong. Anna seemed to come back to herself. She touched her face, not even knowing why she was crying. That unconscious reaction made Yuri feel even worse. He was still worried about what had just happened and pressed her on what exactly that woman had said. But Anna acted calm and simply said she'd just run into a truly awful customer. Tom went back an hour earlier. Sabina had stormed into the flower shop arrogantly, demanding to buy out every flower in the store. She even wanted Anna to supply the royal palace exclusively from then on. The attendants beside her were even more shameless, barking at Anna to hurry up and kneel in gratitude. After all, being favored by royalty was supposed to be a tremendous honor. Anyone else would have been overjoyed. Looking at that expression, Anna only felt this woman was unbearably overbearing. The palace order was certainly tempting, but she would never wag her tail for the enemy who had stolen her husband just for that bit of profit. In this life, she would never bow her head. Anna had originally wanted to find some excuse to decline, since she wanted nothing to do with the royal family. But Sabina's next words became more and more outrageous. Just to spite her rival, the woman actually demanded that Anna not sell flowers to anyone else, even trying to monopolize the business and force the shop to supply only the palace. Hearing such an unreasonable demand, Anna finally exploded. She shouted for Sabina to stop talking nonsense. This was her shop, and it wasn't up to outsiders to tell her what to do. Sabina had never suffered such humiliation. In her eyes, weren't merchants just after money? As long as the palace paid enough, this little shop owner should be grateful. Neither of them would back down, and the situation instantly spiraled out of control. Sabina's terms sounded reasonable on the surface, but Anna knew perfectly well that the woman before her was impulsive and emotional, the kind who changed her mind faster than flipping a page. If today she could block supply just to target someone else, then tomorrow she could just as easily destroy every agreement on a whim. Working with someone like that was no different from making a deal with a tiger. Thinking of this, Anna directly bowed and refused the arrogant princess to her face. She said she only wanted to sell her flowers to people who truly needed them. Sabina was stunned speechless, and before she could even blow up, Anna struck again. She hit right at Sabina's sore spot. "Your Highness, you don't actually need these roses at all, do you?" That completely shattered Sabina's composure. Pointing at Anna's nose, she spat out a threat, saying that by tomorrow this shop would disappear completely and that Anna would be out on the streets tonight. After finally recounting the whole farce, Anna fell silent. Yuri listened in a daze, thinking this girl really had nerves of steel to confront the Grand Princess head-on. Anna, however, looked completely unconcerned and instead turned the topic toward Yuri. She said the way the princess had reacted upon seeing him was definitely not ordinary. Staring into Yuri's eyes, she asked the most fatal question of all. "You two aren't secretly seeing each other, are you?" Yuri was so startled, he nearly jumped. He shook his head again and again, insisting it absolutely wasn't like that. But judging by how frantically he was trying to clear things up, the story behind it probably wasn't simple. Yuri's reaction was even stronger than expected. He felt that kind of joke wasn't funny at all, and was even a little angry. More than the rumors, what he was worried about now was Anna's condition. Just moments ago, she had been so firm in the face of the princess's threats. But Yuri had still noticed one detail that simply couldn't be explained away: the tears Anna had shed just now. Having been hit right in the heart, Anna still stubbornly insisted she didn't know why she cried. But faced with Yuri's relentless questioning, she finally couldn't sit still anymore. She immediately turned the tables and loudly demanded to know why Yuri, who was hiding a pile of secrets himself, had any right to keep pressing her. That left Yuri speechless. The atmosphere between them grew increasingly delicate. Two people who had been arguing fiercely a moment ago suddenly sank into a deathly silence. Neither was willing to speak first. In the end, Anna was the one who stepped back first. She told Yuri not to pry into other people's privacy anymore, because that would only leave everyone embarrassed. Yuri thought it through as well. Since they were only business partners, then each of them should take a step back and keep the secrets in their hearts. Anna had thought this awkward reunion would end on such a plain note, but she kept having a feeling that everything that had happened today was only the beginning. Sure enough, before she even had time to catch her breath, Yuri came hurrying over with the account books, saying something major had happened. In just 1 week, the shop sales had been cut in half. It seemed Sabina's earlier threat had not been a joke. Holding the reports, Yuri said, "Anna, our situation is very dangerous now." Sabina got her revenge by revealing the secret behind the blue roses. Shops all over town are copying them now. This exclusive business may not survive. Anna let out a cold laugh. If the other side wanted to play dirty, then they'd see who got the last laugh. The move was ruthless. They weren't just selling blue roses anymore. They had black, green, purple, and even dyed red roses now. Yuri said seriously that they couldn't just sit around and wait. They had to expose the princess's schemes and deal with all those copycat shops. But looking at the flowers, Anna felt strangely reassured instead. Smiling at Yuri, she said she hadn't expected him to work so hard. He'd even secretly gone out to do market research. Actually, this dyeing technique had never been some great secret. It was only a matter of time before others figured it out. Since this was all the princess was capable of, there was no need to worry too much. The real highlight would be their counterattack. If that's what you think, then I have no objection. Yuri asked helplessly, "Then how exactly do you plan to strike back?" Anna smiled confidently. Who says one flower can only be dyed one color? Since they love following trends, then we'll do something even better. We're going to make rainbow roses with every petal a different color. When that unprecedented flower appeared before Yuri, he was completely won over by the idea and blurted out that Anna was a genius. Just as the craze for single-color dyed flowers was starting to pass, the rainbow rose burst onto the scene and left flower merchants across the empire dumbfounded. The real crushing blow was only just beginning. The moment rainbow roses appeared, the empire's entire aesthetic taste was thrown off course. Dyed flowers instantly became the hottest trend in elite circles. Nobles nearly fought in the streets over custom family colors, and flower merchants were counting money until their hands went numb. Looking at the gold coins scattered all around, Anna laughed with blatant delight. Wealth and status now seemed within reach. In this life, she would open an era of her own with her own hands. Yuri, standing nearby, was stunned. He thought this girl didn't look remotely like a refined lady anymore. She looked like she'd fallen straight into a pit of money. Unable to resist, he leaned over and asked, "Do you really not care about those plagiarists? I remember you even cried over this before." The moment he said that, Anna's laughter stopped abruptly. After a long silence, she gritted her teeth and said, "Of course I'm still angry." Yuri had really brought up exactly the one thing he shouldn't have. That bitterness was not so easy to let go of. At the mention of the princess, Anna was full of rage. Sabina had clearly been trying to smash her livelihood. No one could tolerate that kind of behavior. But Anna also knew that an arm could never overpower a thigh. Since the other party was royalty, if this could calm her down, Anna would rather let the matter end here. Yuri, listening beside her, kept shaking his head. Just moments ago, she had retaliated so beautifully, and now she wanted to turtle up? He bluntly pointed out that her bad mood wasn't only because of the princess. Was it? Was it because the blue roses you worked so hard to cultivate were stolen, just like that? Anna fell silent for a moment, then finally voiced what was truly in her heart. She didn't just hate the princess, she also despised those bottomless merchants. Shouldn't there at least be a little business ethics in this world? Just then, the carriage slowly came to a stop. They had arrived. No matter how unwilling she felt, the road ahead still had to be walked. Anna suddenly leaned in, startling Yuri, who had been lost in thought. Smiling, she asked whether he thought those merchants would band together to squeeze out a newcomer like her for stealing the spotlight. Yuri scratched his head awkwardly. He hadn't thought that far. He was simply worried that someone as eye-catching as Anna would attract unnecessary trouble. But Anna's next words left Yuri dumbstruck. She said that if she only wanted to succeed alone, then this business would never last. Because the blue roses had become so popular, even people who had never bought flowers before had started walking into flower shops. This not only boosted her own business, but also brought money to sellers across the whole market. Only when everyone was doing well could her flowers continue to sell. The kind of broad-mindedness, making the whole cake bigger, wasn't something an ordinary young girl should have. Watching her confident figure among the crowd, Yuri felt a mix of emotions. He finally realized that Anna was no longer the weak woman who needed protection. Anna was not the kind of person who would sit around waiting to be crushed. Since someone wanted to meddle in her business, she would absolutely confront them head-on. But there was one pressing problem. She'd been worrying that the rooftop space was too small and simply couldn't support large-scale flower cultivation. After hearing that, Yuri casually suggested that if there wasn't enough room, she could just build a greenhouse herself. Pointing to the vacant lot behind the shop, he said lightly, "That land is mine too. Use it however you want." This time, it was Anna's turn to be stunned. She had never expected Yuri to be this wealthy. Staring at that empty lot, her imagination instantly ran wild. Building a greenhouse would be safe enough, but it somehow felt lacking. She even considered opening a restaurant instead and replacing all those flowers and plants with steak. But on second thought, Yuri probably wouldn't like all that smoke and grease. After agonizing over it for a long time, she finally made up her mind. She would open a cafe that also served light meals. That way she could use her strengths while letting Yuri do something he liked. Seeing how excited she was, Yuri's eyes were full of indulgence. Smiling, he said that if that was what she wanted, then she should go ahead boldly and do it. It seemed this little flower shop was about to undergo a truly earth-shaking upgrade. Looking at Anna, Yuri made a firm promise. He said he would stay and would help her to the very end no matter what happened. In that instant, Anna froze completely because the man before her looked exactly like someone from her memories. It wasn't just the face. Even the tone of his voice and the way he moved overlapped perfectly. Back then, that person had also told her that past misfortune did not determine the future because life still held countless choices. Those words seemed etched into her bones, leaving Anna dazed. Looking at Yuri in front of her, she asked herself over and over in her heart, "Is this person really master?" Yuri noticed her gaze and smiled, asking if there was something on his face. Anna quickly shook her head to cover it up, but the question in her heart only grew stronger. Unable to hold back, she asked directly, "At first you clearly wanted to drive me away. Why did you suddenly change? What made you change your mind?" Yuri was silent for a moment, then said softly, "Because no one like you has ever appeared by my side before." Before the mood could deepen, the voice of guards suddenly came from outside. They were searching for Lord Yuri. This place was about to be exposed. In that split-second moment, Yuri grabbed Anna and pulled her into the shadows. They absolutely could not be discovered by those people. After evading the searchers, Yuri finally realized he was still holding Anna tightly in his arms. The two of them awkwardly let go. Anna asked curiously who those people were. After a pause, Yuri answered that they all came from the magic tower. Anna froze. "But didn't you say you can no longer use magic? Then why are they still chasing you so relentlessly?" Yuri gave a bitter smile inwardly. "That's because I only lied to you." Anna knew nothing of the truth and was still sincerely trying to help him think of a solution. "Since they value you so much, wouldn't it be nice to go back and become an honorary professor?" Yuri looked helpless hearing that, but Anna's next words made him stop short. She said that being needed by others was a good thing. It meant your abilities were recognized. The word recognized made Yuri's feelings grow complicated. How much longer could this lie be hidden? Yuri suddenly turned cold and said he didn't care about other people's recognition at all. That's why he had told Anna to do what she wanted. That inexplicable burst of temper left Anna completely stunned. Seeing her look at a loss, Yuri softened his tone again. He said it was precisely because there had never been anyone like her by his side that he cared so much about what she thought. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She remembered Eugene's words. Yuri had once had to hide his name and flee from place to place just to avoid being hurt. She suddenly felt that what she'd said earlier had been far too careless. Looking at Yuri's sulking figure as he turned and walked away, she hurried after him and cautiously called his name, only to be met with a proud, huffy snort. As the atmosphere stalled, Anna thought back to the old days. Back then, she had lived like a ghost, unable to decide a single thing for herself. That sense of having no worth had suffocated her. So the day she arrived in the capital, she had secretly vowed that in this life she would never again be controlled by anyone. She would live only for herself. Looking at Yuri, she said softly that she had never imagined there could really be someone in this world who would support her choices. Being understood like this felt so unfamiliar. Since you trust me this much, then no matter what you do from now on, I'll stand firmly on your side too. Yuri was quiet for a while before admitting that he didn't actually hate the people from the Magic Tower. It was just that going back there would remind him that he had once been nothing more than a convenient tool. He never wanted to go through a life of being treated like an object ever again. In a low voice, Yuri apologized to Anna, saying he had indeed overreacted earlier. After a moment of silence, Anna asked what kind of life he actually wanted. Did he want to open a cafe? Or did he have some other plan? Yuri then gave an unexpected answer. He just wanted to loaf around and idle away his days. While the two were enjoying a brief moment of peace, the atmosphere at the palace had fallen to freezing point. Princess Sabina suddenly flew into a rage and viciously hurled a bouquet at Eugene, cursing him for being unbearable. She watched as Eugene quietly picked the flowers up from the floor and calmly asked why she'd summoned him instead today. That question completely lit the fuse. Sabina whirled around, looking as though she wanted to tear him apart alive. It seemed the trouble between these two had only just begun. Sabina's attitude was extremely harsh. She warned Eugene to shut up and do as he was told, and to stop asking questions he shouldn't ask. Sabina collapsed onto the bed, her mind full of her father's harsh scolding. The Emperor had publicly questioned whether she had gone to provoke Lady Murphy again, and had even warned her that if she dared keep talking carelessly, not even the royal family could protect her reputation. That completely shattered the prideful Sabina. She felt that everyone was against her. Whether it was her father or that queen, they were all meddlesome nuisances, and she placed the root of all this suffering squarely on the head of the flower shop owner, Anna. The more Sabina thought about it, the angrier she became. She immediately summoned Eugene and ordered him to handle one thing right away: the flower shop that had created the blue roses. It seemed she could no longer wait to make Anna pay the price. Sabina had completely lost her mind. Pointing into the distance, she roared at her people to get rid of that eyesore immediately. She didn't want to see it for even one more second. Her target was very clear. She meant to utterly destroy that flower shop and make sure Anna could never recover. Who would have thought that the grudge between these people could be traced all the way back to childhood? Back then, the first person Eugene and Yuri met was this lofty Grand Princess. Eugene finally couldn't help complaining to his father that the Grand Princess's demands were becoming more and more outrageous. She even wanted Yuri to eliminate the thorn in her side for her. But Count Ace-Launch was clear-headed. He reminded his son that although the princess's status was somewhat awkward, she was still the emperor's favorite. To put it bluntly, the current Ace-Launch family could not afford to offend her. For the sake of preserving the family, Eugene had no choice but to lower his head. No matter how unwilling he was, in the face of his father's pressure, he could only obey. What that helplessness tasted like probably only he knew best. Late at night in the study, Eugene was still dealing with endless official business. Even the butler couldn't bear to watch anymore and felt the Grand Princess had gone too far this time. Eugene had long since grown used to this kind of dirty work that crossed the line. What concerned him most now was the true identity of the flower shop owner. The investigation results were finally laid out on the desk, but what was written there only made the situation more complicated. It turned out that the girl named Anna was not some ordinary commoner at all, but the daughter of a baronial family from the borderlands. Why would a noble lady hide her identity and come to the capital to sell flowers? What secret was she hiding? In the end, Eugene hardened his heart. Since it was the Grand Princess's order, this girl's fate no longer mattered. He kept comforting himself that since she was a baron's daughter, even if she lost this shop, she'd still have somewhere to retreat to. Thinking of it that way, even that tiny trace of guilt completely vanished. He told himself it was nothing more than currying favor with the princess. That girl's destiny had nothing to do with him. But just as he was about to make his move, Anna knew nothing of it and appeared in the bustling marketplace carrying a heavy bundle of goods. Anna almost blurted out his name, but quickly changed and addressed him as Count instead. She couldn't help wondering how someone so important could appear in a commoner's market. Eugene could only go along with it and make up an excuse, saying the guild had business to handle here. But he knew very well that in truth, he had followed her because he caught sight of her figure. Of course, he couldn't say that aloud. He could only hide it while watching her struggle with the heavy load. Anna was worrying about how far she still had to carry it when her foot suddenly slipped and she almost got hurt. At that critical moment, Eugene lunged forward and caught Anna steadily in his arms. One would have thought this might become the start of something romantic, but who could have guessed the whole scene would go wildly off track? Looking at the eggs shattered all over the ground, Anna instantly exploded. Pointing at the Count, she shouted that there was no point catching her. He should have caught those precious eggs first. A dignified Count could only stand there apologizing again and again after being scolded. In the end, not only did he have to replace the eggs, he also had to help carry all her bags to the cafe. Anna was rather generous, though. To show her thanks, she decided to treat this forced labor to a cup of coffee. The reversal was so sudden that even the Count himself hadn't fully processed it. Sitting in the cafe, Eugene kept trying to retreat in his heart. He felt he shouldn't get any closer to this girl and planned to leave as soon as he finished his drink. But Anna noticed none of his coldness. Instead, she cheerfully pulled out a 7-colored rose and proudly showed it off to him, saying this was a secret weapon not yet released in the shop. She even emphasized mysteriously that the method for making it was an absolute trade secret and that no one could possibly figure it out easily. But Eugene only glanced at it and casually explained the dyeing principle. This time Anna was utterly dumbfounded. Her confidence shattered instantly. She began to worry others would see through it at a glance too. And then all the preparation she had made against her competitors would be for nothing. Looking at Anna's worried face, Eugene suddenly suggested that she could sell through his guild. That way, copyright protection could be secured directly. As long as the guild stepped in, other flower shops would need permission if they wanted to imitate it. On top of that, he would provide extra compensation. It was practically a gift from heaven. But Anna looked extremely uneasy. Stammering, she admitted that she had borrowed this idea too, so she felt there was no need to make such a formal arrangement. She even naively believed that merchants in the business world were probably not all bad people. The moment those words left her mouth, Eugene splashed cold water all over them. With a serious expression, he reminded Anna that there were plenty of bad people in this world. Those who maliciously stole ideas didn't care the least about identity or status. Anna was left speechless. Although she knew he meant well, joining the guild felt far too heavy to her. What should have been a win-win cooperation ended with Anna rejecting him outright. She even used Yuri as a shield, saying that if the shop were incorporated into the guild, Yuri might feel uncomfortable. That really made Eugene hit a wall. He was silent for a moment, then revealed his trademark smile and politely said that he simply hadn't thought it through carefully enough. Watching Anna apologize guiltily, he behaved with perfect grace and even comforted her in return as though his proposal had only been a minor little episode. But in truth, his heart already felt bitter. Yuri's name had only appeared once, yet it stabbed at him like a thorn. On the surface, the two of them were still exchanging polite farewells, but Eugene knew very well that this inexplicable irritation was definitely not that simple. Anna was still sincerely thanking him for helping carry her things, and even talking about working twice as hard for her business. But she had no idea that behind Eugene's gentle smile lay Sabina's deadly order to make her disappear completely. Just as Eugene was about to leave, Anna suddenly stopped him and handed him a potted money tree. This unexpected gift made the already tangled situation even harder to read. Anna said with a smile that gifts didn't need a reason. The more spontaneous they were, the more special they became. Eugene looked at the flower in his hand and, for a moment, couldn't find the words. In the world he knew, there had only ever been profit and calculation. He knew exactly what kind of person he was. In order to climb higher, he could ruthlessly destroy the work others had poured their hearts into. He was a predator through and through, but Anna knew none of that. She even thought he was the best listener. That innocent trust became the cruelest knife of all. Sabina always said Eugene was far easier to use than Yuri. All the people and matters she disliked were naturally tossed to Eugene to deal with. But Eugene knew very well that this dirty work, hidden from the light, absolutely could not be known by Yuri. So he could only struggle with it alone in his room. Back in the flower shop, Anna was holding a blue rose so beautiful that even she couldn't bear to sell it. Yuri quickly poured cold water on that thought, reminding her it was the shop's new featured product. If they didn't sell it, the expensive material costs alone would ruin them. That heavy sense of mission from before instantly turned into the ordinary worry of making a living. Could this piece really continue forever? Anna was currently troubled by something else. A rainbow rose this beautiful, if simply placed on the shelf and sold, would soon lose its novelty just like the blue rose had before. After hearing that, Yuri immediately came up with an idea. Since the product was good enough, then they should simply take the high-end route and create a so-called limited edition. He felt raising the price alone wasn't enough. They had to play a little psychological warfare. First, they'd launch a pre-sale aimed at premium members, turning the flower into a rare item that even money couldn't easily buy. It had to be said, when it came to business, Yuri really was a hidden master. Once word of this spread, everyone's curiosity would be thoroughly hooked. By then, the whole town would go crazy for this flower. Yuri's grand business drama had officially begun. He planned to create a dazzling spectacle first and turn this rainbow rose into the treasure every noble lady in town wanted. To make the first shot count, he set his sights on Lady Murphy. He planned to send over a bouquet first. As long as they could spark this noblewoman's curiosity, the flower shop would completely establish itself. Anna was delighted to hear it and felt the business was going smoother than ever. At this rate, there would be nothing to worry about in the future. But who could have known that just as she burst into laughter, she suddenly lost consciousness and collapsed straight to the floor? Now there was real trouble. What had been a wonderful situation was instantly thrown into chaos by this sudden accident. Yuri panicked and quickly caught her. The moment he touched her forehead, he found she was burning up. It seemed this period of overwork had really worn her down. Though Anna still wanted to push through, Yuri's attitude this time was extremely firm. He sent her straight back to her room to rest and planned to take care of all the remaining work himself. After settling Anna in, Yuri stayed up through the night, writing a letter to the ducal household. Looking at the envelope in his hand, he hesitated. Should he send it directly by magic or not? Using magic would certainly be more convenient, but it would very likely arouse suspicion and might even expose the identity he had been hiding all this time. Looking at the empty room, Yuri started wavering. At this point, was there really any need to keep hiding the truth from Anna, that he was a great mage? Yuri remembered when they had first met. Anna had curiously asked whether he was a mage from the legends. At the time, just to avoid unnecessary trouble, he had casually lied. But after spending more time with her, Yuri discovered that this girl was truly special. She had once personally told him that even if he really could use magic, she would never take advantage of him for free. In other people's eyes, mages were either useful tools or abnormal monsters. But Anna would never think that way, nor would she ever look at him with those strange eyes. Thinking of this, Yuri's last shred of hesitation disappeared. Since she was this sincere, there was no need for him to keep acting anymore. The truth was that Yuri had originally decided to let Anna stay entirely because of that mysterious magic circle. Although the handwriting on it did indeed belong to him, at his current level, there was no way he could draw such a perfect formation. This gave him a bold suspicion. Could it be that his future self had deliberately left this clue for his present self? But as he looked at the sleeping Anna, Yuri felt uncharacteristically nervous. If she found out that he had been secretly studying the magic on her body all this time, would she feel used? The Yuri of the past had never cared about anyone's feelings. Yet somehow, at some point, he had become this hesitant and cautious. While he was lost in wild thoughts, Anna made a faint sound from the bed. Half asleep, she murmured the word master. That one word left Yuri completely stunned. Just who exactly was this so-called master? Sabina still refused to let things go, insisting that Yuri at least smile at her. But the moment Yuri spoke, the atmosphere dropped straight to freezing. He clearly didn't want to stay there at all. Just as Sabina was about to get to the point, Yuri disappeared on the spot, leaving her alone in a fury. Who would have thought that Yuri, after avoiding all the noise, would end up standing alone on the balcony, seemingly waiting for someone? Just then, a familiar voice came from behind him. Eugene. Eugene had followed him to the balcony and urged Yuri to hurry back to the banquet hall. After all, Princess Sabina was still looking for him everywhere. She was not an easy problem to deal with. Yuri had clearly reached the limit of his patience, and even wanted to sever ties with the princess completely. But Eugene remained unusually calm, because he had a bigger plan in mind. As long as they waited until the coming-of-age ceremony, they would officially inherit the position of head of the house. Once that happened, the Ace-Launch family would no longer have to bow to anyone. Eugene advised in a low voice that all this endurance was only temporary. Once they held real power, Sabina would no longer have any value to exploit. It seemed these two brothers were already prepared for the tide to turn. Since his twin elder brother had spoken, Yuri agreed to leave first. Yuri suddenly sat upright in bed, his mind still hazy. Before he could come to his senses, the surroundings left him utterly stunned. This was not his room at all. It was Anna's bed. Now this was awkward. Had he really just fallen asleep here last night? Or had Anna carried him over? The thought that he might have spent the entire night sleeping defenselessly beside her sent Yuri into a panic. If this were misunderstood, there would be no way to explain it. Yuri forced himself downstairs. He had expected last night's events to be unbearably awkward, but Anna was already calmly tending the flowers and plants as though nothing had happened. Seeing how composed she was only made Yuri more uneasy. Could it really be that nothing had happened last night? Anna asked him with concern whether he'd had a nightmare, because he had been muttering in his sleep all night. It sounded as though he was desperately searching for someone. Yuri was baffled. He had no memory at all of talking in his sleep. What disturbed him even more was Anna's mention of a master. That title was far too strange. Yuri kept turning it over in his mind, wondering who exactly this so-called master was. Could there be a secret buried in Anna's memories that he knew nothing about? Yuri was still struggling with the question of who had helped Anna run away from home. But looking at the girl in front of him, he suddenly wanted to ask something more important. He called out to Anna and asked whether she was happy living here. To his surprise, Anna gave him an immediate, direct answer. She said this was the happiest and most exciting period of her entire life. That response left Yuri stunned. Trying to ease the delicate mood, Yuri began jokingly praising himself, saying that with such an obedient and adorable younger man like him around, how could anyone not be happy? Anna burst out laughing at that, but Yuri was thinking, if all of her happiness really came from him, then he never wanted to let go for the rest of his life. Anna's straight shot this time completely left Yuri at a loss. She said her happiness wasn't because Yuri was handsome, but because of Yuri's heart, because he had silently supported her all along from behind. Yuri was utterly stunned. He had always thought he was the one loving alone, yet in her heart, he was actually this important. Smiling, Anna asked him in return whether working in the flower shop felt tiring. After all, this kind of rough work was completely at odds with his former status. Yuri already had the answer in his heart. As long as he could stay by Anna's side, then even trimming flower branches was the happiest thing in the world to him. This wasn't a flower shop anymore. This was practically a public display of affection. Their relationship could no longer be hidden. Ever since the bouquet of rainbow roses had been delivered to the Murphy ducal house, the entire capital had exploded with gossip. Everyone was talking about it. That never-before-seen color of flower had people flooding the shop with inquiries before it even opened, nearly wearing down the threshold. This was exactly the moment Anna had been waiting for. Her mind was now full of fantasies about counting money until her hands went numb. She had even started imagining a rich future where she only worked for fun and lived a laid-back life surrounded by piles of gold. Just as she was grinning from ear to ear, a knock suddenly sounded from outside. Today was supposed to be a day off. Who could be showing up now to ruin the mood? Anna had wanted to refuse outright, but the moment she opened the door, the mysterious visitor before her made the words die in her throat. The woman outside spoke at once and directly called her by name, saying Anna was the young artisan who had been following the little prince. From that tone alone, it was clear she had had her eye on Anna for a long time. Anna stood frozen, completely unable to remember where she had seen this gorgeously dressed noblewoman before. She could only cautiously ask who she was. The woman elegantly touched the brim of her hat and smiled, saying this was indeed their first meeting. But her next self-introduction made the air in the room freeze. She said she came from the Murphy ducal house, and her name was Rosemary, the very crown prince's fiancée from the rumors. A person of that level had actually come to her door in person. Anna was completely stunned. This face was clearly unfamiliar. So why did it feel so strangely familiar? At that very instant, she finally remembered. Even though the name didn't match at all, the woman before her was definitely not someone she was seeing for the first time. Once, Anna had deeply hated her own name, feeling it sounded like nothing more than roadside grass anyone could trample. Until the Marquis of Sardinia had appeared, placed a ring on her finger with his own hands, and given her a brand new name, Peony. My dearest little Peony, would you stay by my side forever? In every timeline Anna had lived through, this woman was destined to become the crown princess. She was perfection in everyone's eyes. Everyone was intoxicated by the romantic story behind her name. Yet no one knew her real given name was actually Rosemary. Anna had thought she would be some cold and elegant noblewoman. But the moment they met, she was making a joke out of her own name. Looking at the woman laughing before her, Anna felt completely at a loss. The contrast was too great. This future crown princess seemed nothing like the rumors at all. Rosemary deliberately brought up that gift. What caught her, I wasn't the expensive rainbow rose, but the inconspicuous sprig of rosemary. It turned out that at a recent banquet, Grand Princess Sabina had publicly mocked her, saying her name sounded like roadside weeds. Faced with such blatant humiliation, Rosemary hadn't backed down. Instead, she had stepped forward holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Her tone had been gentle, but every word pierced. Compared to those red roses that only knew how to compete in brilliance, ordinary little flowers understood survival much better. That soft yet steely reply had left everyone present speechless. Seeing Grand Princess Sabina get embarrassed had felt incredibly satisfying to Rosemary. She grabbed Anna's hand and kept thanking her. It was all thanks to that key sprig of rosemary that she had completely turned things around at the banquet and had even secured priority access to the new products. Faced with the future crown princess, Anna was outwardly polite, but inwardly she was deeply uneasy. After all, those wildly popular rose ideas were not really her own. She had only gotten lucky and picked up a bargain. A situation maintained purely by luck. How long could it really last? The moment Rosemary spoke again, Anna was completely stunned. She directly called out that hidden name. That oppressive feeling, as if Rosemary could see straight through her heart, left Anna in no time to react before even worse news arrived. In a serious tone, Rosemary warned her that Grand Princess Sabina had completely set her sights on her now, and that the hatred was only growing more and more frenzied. Because she had failed to get that rainbow rose, the arrogant Grand Princess had put all the blame on Anna. But before leaving, Rosemary said one final thing. If anything really happened, Anna should just invoke the name of the Murphy family. A piece of good fortune this unbelievable only made Anna more nervous. She couldn't understand why Rosemary would help her. Rosemary smiled and raised 2 fingers. The reason was simple. She wanted to be friends with Anna. Before Anna could even react, this action-oriented young lady was already trying to drag her off on a wild shopping trip to the boutique. Faced with such sudden enthusiasm, Anna could only treat Yuri as her life-saving straw, and the scene instantly descended into chaos. But the just-awakened Yuri only stared at the woman, already having reached his own conclusion. This woman definitely came from the Murphy family. Why exactly had Sabina become so obsessed with targeting Anna? Rosemary finally understood. It all traced back to several years ago. At that splendid banquet, Sabina had publicly staged a shameless forced engagement, unilaterally announcing her chosen fiancé. And the man she was clinging to so tightly was none other than Yuri of the Ace Launch family. One look at Yuri's utterly dead expression was enough to tell anyone the whole thing was a ridiculous farce. No wonder Sabina had gone so mad. So she had long since regarded Yuri as her personal property. Rosemary took the initiative to greet him and even recognize Yuri at a glance. It turned out Yuri had always been a frequent visitor to her household. But what Rosemary said next instantly made the atmosphere grow subtle. She wanted to take Anna to buy a dress, invite her to next week's tea party, and even jokingly asked whether the two of them were on a date today. That single word, date, immediately left both of them speechless. Things had suddenly become very interesting. Yuri quickly explained that he and Anna merely shared similar interests and were definitely not in that sort of dating relationship. Nor were they living together. But Rosemary clearly didn't buy it, and even tossed back a sarcastic remark, saying that ordinary people's common sense obviously didn't apply to a great mage like him. Before Yuri could respond, Anna was forcibly whisked away, leaving him standing there alone in frustration. The more he thought about it, the more it annoyed him. Wasn't that obviously looking down on mages? Did people really see him as some socially inept freak? Yuri was in a terrible mood now. From the bottom of his heart, he despised those nobles and felt none of them were any good. Actually, it was because in the past, everyone had treated him like a monster. They had even said he and that tyrannical princess were a perfect match made in heaven. Back then, only Eugene had stayed by his side and comforted him, saying, "Leave everything to me." But Yuri now utterly refused to admit that he had ever depended on that spineless fool. He felt this group of nobles cared about nothing but appearances and pretense all day long, especially that Rosemary. What right did she have to prepare clothes for Anna? In his eyes, Anna was already perfect as she was now. No one understood her better than he did. This time, Yuri's jealousy had completely exploded. Yuri still couldn't swallow this down. Rosemary had beaten him to the dress, and he felt humiliated beyond words. Since he couldn't compete on clothes, then he'd give Anna something that woman could never produce in her whole life. He decided to return to the Magic Tower and find that bunch of eccentric people. It seemed he was really preparing a major move this time. Before anyone else had even reacted, Yuri had already changed into a magnificent outfit. When he appeared before everyone with a smile, the entire Magic Tower was thrown into chaos. Who could have imagined that the long-vanished great mage Yuri would return at this moment? Judging by the situation, it seemed the coming storm was really about to change everything. Faced with the mage's enthusiastic welcome, Yuri remained very cold. He said bluntly that he had only come back to pick up a few things. The things he meant were magical tools that could let even ordinary people instantly use magic. It was rather ironic, really. The Magic Tower's everyday expenses were astonishingly high, and the royal subsidy alone was nowhere near enough. So these mages had no choice but to secretly sell such items to wealthy nobles. Though the nobles looked down on mages in public, they still spent silver by the handful for the sake of convenience. That was the only reason the Magic Tower had managed to survive until now. But Yuri was obviously hard to please. When his subordinates brought out all their treasured items, he looked disgusted. He thought every one of them was unbearably clunky. Finding the perfect gift, it seemed, was not going to be as easy as he had imagined. Looking at the ugly items on the table, Yuri grew more irritated the longer he stared. Pointing at the pile of junk, he demanded to know what noble lady would ever buy such things. The mages felt wronged and insisted these were the tower's most powerful creations. But Yuri cut straight to the point and said they simply had no sense of aesthetics. If they wanted to win a customer's heart, appearance had to come first. When not in use, it had to look like a work of art. When in use, it had to resemble a piece of jewelry. The mages listened with worshipful expressions, thinking the great mage was finally about to revolutionize their business. But Yuri barely had 3 seconds to look cool before the next words made him break out in a cold sweat. Someone mentioned that lately, on the streets, they had often seen a pink-haired man asking around about Yuri and wondered what that was about. That completely threw Yuri into a panic. He hurriedly warned them all to keep their mouths shut and absolutely not tell anyone. If his family found out that he had been working incognito at a flower shop, his cover would be blown for good. Yuri said frankly that he had long since had enough of being a mage. All he wanted was to find a quiet place and live the peaceful life he actually liked. But even while talking about retirement, his eye for gifts remained sharp. In the middle of that pile of junk, he immediately spotted a sapphire necklace. It was one of the Magic Tower's signature works. The mages nervously reminded him that it had been made by the tower master himself, and taking it required the maker's permission. Yuri couldn't care less. He remarked that the old man clearly hadn't gone senile yet, then stuffed the necklace into his pocket and turned to leave. The mages couldn't stop him and could only watch helplessly as he slipped away. But none of them noticed that in the shadowy corner behind the bookshelves, someone was silently staring at Yuri. As he walked, Yuri kept cursing, convinced the tower master was playing games with him. The necklace looked pretty enough, but once he examined the spell work inside, he nearly exploded on the spot. A top-tier magical artifact, and it was loaded with nothing but cleaning spells and muscle relaxation magic. a complete housework set. The old man had even dressed it up nicely, saying it would be useful when Yuri got old. Yuri wasn't having any of that. He immediately started dismantling it by force, planning to completely reinstall the necklace. He erased the useless household spells and infused it with his own magic instead. Then he carved 2 new functions into it. 1, it could sense the other person's location at any time. 2, the moment that person needed him, he could teleport to their side instantly. At that point, this necklace was basically the same as hiring Anna, a personal bodyguard who would stay on call 24 hours a day, and one Yuri had made himself. Looking at the transformed gift, Yuri finally showed a satisfied expression, but he still couldn't help worrying that Rosemary might pick out some strangely styled dress for Anna. Yuri's thoughts were full of that girl. He felt that with Anna's personality, no matter what gift she received, she would definitely smile with genuine joy. Seeing that it was already getting late, he guessed she was probably still at the boutique. But the longing in his heart was impossible to suppress. He didn't want to wait even one more second. If he wanted to see her, then he would go straight to her side. Yuri snapped his fingers, and in an instant his whole body descended from the sky. He gripped the necklace tightly in his hand, full of anticipation, hoping to see Anna's smiling face at once. Just as Anna and Rosemary were still strolling through the streets, a familiar voice suddenly came from overhead. Anna, before anyone else could react, Yuri came down from the sky with his gift. Anna whipped around. Yuri quickly walked over and softly said, "Found you." Who could have imagined it? Dressed in a gorgeous formal gown, Anna looked like a completely different person. In her new identity, she was Rosemary of the Murphy family, and the act was surprisingly convincing. Yuri sounded awkward, but inwardly he had to admit that this outfit was truly stunning on her. But before the tea party had even begun, trouble had already found them. Someone was asking after Yuri's whereabouts. It seemed this gathering of noble ladies was not going to be as simple as drinking tea. The real contest had only just begun. The moment Yuri heard that Anna had made a new friend, he completely panicked. He kept asking what that made him then. Only when Anna smiled and nodded, admitting that he was also one of her most important friends, did Yuri freeze in place, unable to recover for quite a while. Now that his place had finally been acknowledged, the gift he had been hiding for so long could at last be given openly. Though he muttered that giving her a gift might seem strange, seeing how much an alike it made Yuri finally breathe a sigh of relief. This carefully chosen pendant was nothing short of perfect with her blue dress. Before leaving, Yuri did not forget to remind her that if she ever encountered danger, she only had to grip the pendant tightly. He promised he would come the moment she called. Though Anna thought that sounded a little exaggerated, the weight of his feelings still warmed her heart. Before long, the carriage had already stopped at the door. Rosemary actually came out personally to greet her, which really was rather unexpected. Faced with a warm and welcoming young lady, Anna responded politely while trying hard to get used to moving around in such elaborate clothing. After all, the gathering ahead was not going to be just a round of simple pleasantries. The real test was only beginning. Though she had once been used to wearing luxurious gowns, the current Anna actually found an apron far more comfortable. She felt awkward all over, as if she were wearing someone else's clothes. Rosemary gently took her hand, praised her beauty, and encouraged her to be more confident. At last, Anna couldn't hold back and asked why Rosemary was being so kind to her, even having a dress custom-made for her. Rosemary smiled and spoke honestly. It was because of that rosemary plant. For the first time, she had seen what it looked like when flowers bloomed. Because of that small act, the young lady had decided she wanted Anna as a friend. She even proposed that they call each other by name. In this complicated social circle, such simple friendship seemed the rarest gift of all. Now that they had become close friends, Anna changed the way she addressed her as well, calling her affectionately Rose. Anna had assumed this noble gathering would be a banquet full of scheming and hidden knives. She had even prepared herself to be made things difficult for her. But the result was completely unexpected. This was no social battlefield at all. It was practically a giant fan meeting. The noble ladies surrounded her with endless questions, all full of curiosity and admiration for how she had built things up from nothing. Just when the atmosphere was at its liveliest, Mary Ann mysteriously brought out a jar of jam and insisted that Anna, the expert, give it her opinion. One bite of that jam with a scone was absolutely incredible. It seemed the surprises of this gathering were only beginning. Who would have guessed that such delicious jam had actually been made by Mary Ann herself? and that behind it lay a rather bitter story. Originally, there had been a bumper harvest of fruit in her territory, but a heavy rainstorm had knocked it all to the ground. Just as the farmers were about to lose everything, Marianne wanted to turn the ruined fruit into something valuable. But her father dismissed the idea as childish make-believe and never took her seriously. Just when she was about to give up, the news of Anna's success in business gave her the courage to stand up again. A seed Anna had planted casually had already blossomed in someone else's heart. Being treated as a role model filled Anna with mixed emotions. Clearly, this was not just a jar of jam. It was the beginning of two girls' dreams. But she had never imagined that she could become someone else's hope or even change another girl's fate. At first, when Anna started her business, she only wanted to keep moving forward. She thought that as long as she had money, no one would be able to bully her. Only at this moment did she truly understand the things Yuri had once told her. There really were countless ways to live a life. She was no longer the invisible girl who could only drift along with the current. Now she could try anything that might be possible. For that, she had to thank Yuri for supporting her from behind the scenes, and also these friends who sincerely stood by her, giving her the courage to walk a different path. Looking at the kind people around her, Anna's heart was full of gratitude. She wanted to say thank you to them all in person, especially to the person who had always protected her. If she got the chance to meet him again, she would definitely tell him how she felt. Just as everyone was chatting happily, a maid suddenly stepped forward and respectfully called out to Anna. In the eyes of the servants here, she was the very legend who had built the Little Prince flower shop by hand. Especially because of that one-of-a-kind blue enchantress rose, she had become someone they all admired. The maid even wanted to speak with her in private. Anna froze on the spot. What exactly did this woman want? Aside from knowing that her surname was Valen, Anna knew almost nothing about her. Every clue seemed to end here. What secret was hidden behind her real identity? The more Anna looked, the more something fell off. This maid named Charlotte looked exactly like the person in the portrait. Forgetting all etiquette, Anna asked Rosemary whether she could borrow this maid for a little while. She had to get to the bottom of this immediately. Who could have known that this seemingly ordinary maid was actually the Duke's illegitimate daughter, Rosemary's half-sister by the same father? Although the Duke had once provided for them, once Charlotte came of age, all support was cut off entirely. She had no choice but to enter the estate and work as a lowly maid. Rosemary had always wanted to look after this sister, but Charlotte kept avoiding her and never gave her a chance to speak. That made things difficult. Rosemary could only place her last hope in Anna. She wanted Anna to step in and help untie the knot between the two sisters. Anna had already guessed that Charlotte had approached her on purpose because of that very matter. Sure enough, the moment the topic of rainbow roses came up, Charlotte's words poured out without stopping. She even excitedly shared a secret she had discovered while working with dyes. Only then did Anna realize that Charlotte was not living easily in the Duke's household. Those so-called relatives were no different from strangers to her. These thoughts from the heart could only be spoken to an outsider like Anna. Since they clearly shared the same interests, Anna decided not to beat around the bush any longer. Looking straight at Charlotte, she suddenly made a bold proposal. Since you know so much about flowers, would you be interested in experimenting with me? Faced with such a good opportunity, Charlotte's first reaction was rejection. Lowering her head, she quietly said her family would definitely object. Then she began putting herself down non-stop, saying she was clumsy, that she ruined everything she touched, and that she could never compare to Anna. Listening to her, Anna felt more and more that something was very wrong. Was this deep-rooted inferiority the pressure imposed on her by the Duke's household, or something caused by her mother? To find out the truth, Anna followed that line of conversation and discovered that Charlotte did not even use her biological father's surname. She was now called Charlotte Valen, using her stepfather's surname. The family relationships behind this girl were far more complicated than anyone had imagined. The moment Anna heard the name Valen, everything suddenly clicked into place. So in the original story, Charlotte had actually been the genius who first cultivated the blue rose. That realization made Anna feel even worse. She felt she had stolen the honor and future that should have belonged to Charlotte. The overwhelming guilt left her deeply unsettled. She could not just stand by and watch such a genius be buried away in the Duke's estate. She wanted to tell Charlotte, "You are more outstanding than anyone else." Thinking that, Anna drew a deep breath. Then she directly extended an invitation. "Charlotte, if you're willing, would you like to quit being a maid and come work at my shop instead?" The sudden offer left Charlotte completely stunned. Anna quickly came up with an excuse, saying the shop had been incredibly busy lately and was short of someone who understood flowers. But Anna herself knew very well that this was not simply hiring help. It was also her way of giving a little compensation to a buried genius. If she could turn Charlotte into her business partner, that would be even better. Charlotte was still hesitant, but under Anna's persistent coaxing, she finally gathered her courage and decided to visit the shop that very day. Anna eagerly led her toward the flower shop, thinking everything would go smoothly. But the moment they reached the door, an angry roar came from inside. Don't even think about it. Before Anna could introduce Charlotte, Yuri had already exploded. Arms folded, he looked like someone with absolutely no intention of compromising. He loudly declared that besides Anna, he had no desire whatsoever to work with anyone else. The atmosphere instantly turned painfully awkward. Anna could only sigh. She had brought Charlotte over to join the shop. Yet before they had even stepped inside, her own employee had already staged a strike. Second by second, time passed, and the situation remained deadlocked. Anna cautiously asked what exactly he was dissatisfied with. She had wanted to reason with him, saying the shop was short-handed and Charlotte, who had experience, could help. But Yuri refused to listen to anything. He even used their previous agreement about work to block her argument, making Anna so angry that she finally said everything outright. She simply felt that Charlotte had been living a hard life and wanted to lend her a hand. But Yuri would not accept that at all. In his view, there were countless pitiful people in the world. Why meddle in this particular one's affairs? The argument escalated, and in the end, Yuri finally said what he really felt. Other than Anna, he wanted no one else. No one had expected Yuri to lose his temper so badly. The whole discussion collapsed completely. Throwing out a harsh line, he said Anna had been forcing things on him from the very beginning, then turned and stormed off. Before Anna could even process what had happened, Yuri was already far away, leaving her standing there in stunned frustration. The air was awkward to the extreme, seeing that it was getting late. Charlotte also felt too embarrassed to stay and quickly found an excuse to leave first. The lively recruitment plan had now left only Anna, staring worriedly at the empty street. After seeing Charlotte off, Anna stood alone in the sunset, her mind still in chaos. She could not understand why Yuri had gotten so angry just now. Clearly, this matter was far from over. Meanwhile, Yuri secretly went to someone's house. Looking at the shabby little place in front of him, he wore a look of disdain, feeling that the place was far too run down. Just as he was about to observe further, he realized Charlotte had already come home. That completely disrupted his plan. Yuri had never expected Anna to let her go back so quickly. The moment Charlotte returned home, a man blocked her at the door and started loudly berating her. It seemed this girl's life at home was truly miserable. Hidden in the dark, Yuri saw everything clearly. He had obviously not expected Charlotte's circumstances to be this bad. The atmosphere in the palace had also dropped below freezing. Grand Princess Sabina was furiously berating a group of scholars. She thought these so-called smart people were all useless trash. Even the problem of dyeing a rose was beyond them. It was simply humiliating for the imperial family. Though the elderly scholars felt deeply wronged, in front of a raging Sabina, they had no room to talk back. Sabina had already issued a strict order. No matter what methods they used, they had to produce something that surpassed that little flower seller's work. To defeat Anna, the Grand Princess had clearly gone half-mad. Sabina's mind was now filled entirely with revenge. She pressed the scholars to hurry and think of a solution, determined to recover the dignity she felt she had lost. But who would have thought that this group of usually meek intellectuals would finally stand firm for once? They made it plain, since Her Highness was so dissatisfied, they would no longer do the job. She could find someone else. Sabina could hardly believe her ears. She loudly threatened them with her status as princess, but they ignored her completely and slammed the door behind them as they left. With the dignity of the imperial family utterly trampled, Sabina lost control on the spot. Since no one would help her, she decided to act personally and see exactly who out there was opposing her. This time Sabina was determined to go, and no one could stop her. Throwing on a cloak at random, she rushed out. The maid behind her was terrified. In the middle of the night, the princess was actually planning to leave the palace alone. When people tried to stop her, Sabina said only one name. She had to see Eugene immediately. Eugene had only just returned home when he found the household in complete chaos. The butler hurried up to report that Grand Princess Sabina had suddenly come calling. Not only had she ignored everyone this late at night, she had barged straight into Eugene's private office. It was obvious she had come looking for trouble. When Eugene pushed open the door, he saw Sabina sitting there brazenly, immediately demanding to know why he had returned so late. Tonight, it seemed, was destined not to be a peaceful one. Sabina had truly exploded this time. Pointing a finger right at Eugene's nose, she cursed him out, accusing him of neglecting his proper duties and spending all his time fooling around outside. What angered her most was that the flower shop had still not gone under. It was even selling rainbow roses now. In her eyes, that was clearly a deliberate mockery of her. What she found even harder to bear was that Yuri's stance had changed as well. He was actually mixing with that flower-selling woman, and Eugene had obviously known for a long time, yet kept it hidden from her. Faced with the Grand Princess's rage, Eugene could only lower his head and appease her, promising that once he dealt with his current business, he would immediately take care of the flower shop. Looking at the shattered flower pot on the floor, anyone could tell this matter would not end well. Sabina casually admitted that she was the one who had smashed the bouquet and pot. Her reason was simply that she had been in a bad mood and wanted something to vent her anger on. She even mocked Eugene's taste, saying that a plant that looked like a weed did not deserve a place in the room at all, completely unaware that she had already crossed a line. At that moment, Eugene, who had been silent until then, finally erupted. In an icy tone, he coldly issued an order for the Grand Princess to leave at once. Sabina was completely stunned. She had never imagined Eugene would fall out with her over a potted plant. Seeing him turn to leave, the defenses in her heart collapsed instantly. She clung to him from behind and begged through tears for him not to go. So the thing this usually proud princess feared most was being abandoned. The Little Prince Flower Shop had recently hired a newcomer, but now there was trouble. The new girl, Charlotte, was practically a walking disaster. She could turn even picking up flower branches into a complete mess. Looking at the flowers she had ruined, Charlotte broke down in tears on the spot, feeling utterly hopeless. Anna, watching from the side, was already getting a headache. And Yuri? Not only was he not angry, he was grinning from ear to ear, practically gloating. He felt this finally proved that Anna did not need anyone else by her side. He alone was enough. He even shouted that they should hurry and send Charlotte away, making Anna roll her eyes in exasperation. At a time like this fool was still jealous over something so absurd. Yet seeing how listless Charlotte looked in the shop, Anna felt something was wrong. Just earlier, when talking about flowers, the girl had still had light in her eyes. Though Charlotte was clumsy with manual work, her mind was full of unusual ideas. Anna decided to change tactics and let her focus specifically on planning new products. But just then, Yuri suddenly called Anna outside. His expression was very serious because he had discovered a shocking secret. It turned out Charlotte had long been abused at home. Yuri had seen with his own eyes that her brother actually beat her. That was no ordinary family quarrel. Behind this seemingly ordinary shop assistant was a family already shattered to pieces. After hearing what Yuri had found out, Anna was stunned. Charlotte was not only beaten by her family, she also had to work desperately to support those two men. It was like she had fallen into a den of human trash. The more Anna heard, the more her heart twisted. She immediately decided that Charlotte absolutely could not be sent back there. She even suggested simply letting Charlotte move in with them. But unexpectedly, Yuri rejected the idea outright. That made them finally lay everything out in the open. Anna thought Yuri was being heartless. How could he hear all this and still remain indifferent? But Yuri felt Anna was meddling far too much. It simply was not worth it for the sake of an outsider. Yet what he called an outsider was something entirely different in Anna's heart. Anna could no longer sit still. Charlotte's situation was too painful to watch. If Yuri was not willing to help, then she would do it herself and find Charlotte a place to stay first. But just as she was about to rush out, one sentence from Yuri stopped her. "Did you ever actually ask Charlotte what she wants?" and a thought that didn't even need asking. Who would want to stay in a hellish home like that? But Yuri shook his head and pointed out the cruelest reality of all. If Charlotte truly wanted to escape, she would have asked for help long ago. Yet instead she ran back and forth every day and obediently handed over all the money she earned. That showed Charlotte had been crushed down to her very bones. She did not even dare entertain the thought of running away. That kind of deep-seated fear could not be solved simply by giving her a different place to live. Yuri's words were harsh, but every sentence hit the heart of the matter. If Charlotte herself could not see a way out, then no number of opportunities offered by others would help. Simply giving her a job would never solve the root problem. Yuri reminded Anna that if she intended to help, she had to help all the way. Anna fell silent for a moment. At last, she understood what Yuri meant. Teaching someone to fish was better than merely giving them a fish. Quietly, she made up her mind that she had to come up with a foolproof plan. Yuri said they needed to stay calm, but in the end he still softened. What he said next, however, made the atmosphere turn freezing cold. He laid it out directly and asked Charlotte why she kept going back to a home that did not even treat her like a human being. No one had expected the most painful truth to be exposed like that in front of everyone. In the end, Charlotte still left. She said that if she did not go home, her family would not even have anything to eat. Such an absurd reason left a bitter taste in everyone's heart. Anna regretted it terribly, feeling that she should have stopped Charlotte just now. Even escorting her home would have been better than this. But now, whatever she said was too late. Beside her, Yuri sensed there was more to it. He could not understand why Anna would go this far for an outsider. This was bad. She could hardly say she was someone who had transmigrated into this world. Anna had to quickly come up with another explanation to smooth things over. After a long silence, she finally decided to tell the truth, because Charlotte's current situation was exactly the same as her own had once been. Anna finally spoke. She decided to tell Yuri everything she had buried in her heart about that awful family from her past. After hearing those outrageous experiences, Yuri exploded completely. He had never imagined that those so-called family members had dared treat her that way. Anna, on the other hand, remained very calm. She noticed that Yuri's reaction now was far more intense than it had been when he heard about Charlotte. Without thinking, Yuri blurted out that in his heart, Charlotte could never compare to Anna. So this was the reason Anna had been determined to help Charlotte, because they were both the same, an useless father and a violent brother. In the end, Yuri could not help asking what had given Anna the resolve to cut ties with her family. Anna smiled and answered lightly with just 2 words, "I got tired of it." Her words sounded almost old beyond her years. Even Yuri could not help complaining that she was obviously only 20. So why did she talk like someone who had already lived 40 years? In truth, it was because someone had once given her a push during her darkest hour, giving her the courage to finally say goodbye to that suffocating home. Yuri looked at her gently and softly said, "Anna, running away isn't shameful. You have every right to pursue freedom." Those words completely woke her up. Since she herself had once been saved, she now wanted to help Charlotte in the same way. After listening for a long time, Yuri finally took the initiative and said he would keep watch on Charlotte in secret. If something happened, at least someone would be there. Although Anna thought his posture and expression made him look suspicious no matter how one looked at it, this was indeed the only option for now. They were in the middle of such a serious conversation when Yuri's stomach suddenly growled. The mood instantly turned a little awkward, and the two decided to fill their stomachs first. Yuri said he was going to buy ingredients and told Anna not to follow him, claiming it was because it was pouring outside and he had somewhere else to stop by as well. Who would have thought that when he turned away, he would return to that heavily guarded, cold family mansion? The butler nearly lost his soul from shock when he saw him. This young master, who had been gone for so long, had suddenly appeared at the front door in weather like this. Yuri had no interest in reminiscing. He had come back only to deal with some private business, and the moment he spoke, he got straight to the point. "Where's Eugene?" Yuri returned to the estate to ask about his brother's whereabouts, but the butler said Eugene had not been acting quite right lately. Ever since the princess had smashed his beloved potted plant, he had been in a daze all day. Yuri thought the reason sounded absurd, going that far over a flower pot, but what he did not know was what that plant meant to Eugene. At that moment, Eugene was standing out in the rain like a drenched stray animal, clutching the potted plant tightly in his arms and refusing to let go no matter who tried to persuade him. Just then, Anna happened to pass by holding an umbrella and recognized him at a glance. "Why are you sitting here alone in this rain?" Eugene slowly lifted his head, his voice sounding weak. He said, "I've been waiting for you here." Anna could never have imagined that Eugene's first words would be such a bombshell. He said he had wanted to see her all along. The direct confession caught her completely off guard. Anna panicked on the spot and even wondered if she had heard wrong. Seeing her react so strongly, Eugene quickly changed his words and apologized, as if he wished he could take them back immediately. Right in the middle of that awkwardness, he suddenly sneezed. Looking at the shattered flower pot on the ground, Eugene was full of self-reproach, repeating that he had simply been too careless. Anna quickly smoothed things over, saying that as long as the plant was still alive, putting it into a new pot would make it as good as new. As she skillfully transplanted it, she felt there was more to this than met the eye. Someone as careful as Eugene should never have made such a low-level mistake. After finishing, she reminded Eugene to take proper care of it this time and urged him to hurry and change out of his wet clothes. But Eugene's reaction showed that he still had not recovered from the earlier chaos. The butler explained what had happened. Princess Sabina had made a scene and smashed the flower pot Eugene treasured most. No one had expected the usually calm Eugene to explode and throw the princess out on the spot. The butler was beside himself with worry, afraid it would damage their relationship with the imperial family. But Eugene did not care about any princess. He only wanted his flower pot back. It turned out that the potted plant had been bought from a flower shop called the Little Prince. It was the first plant that had ever truly touched his heart. Looking at Eugene as if he might devour someone, the butler understood everything. This was not about the flower at all. He had clearly fallen for the girl at the shop. Yuri said he did not want to think about it, yet his mind was full of Anna's image. In his eyes, that girl possessed a kind of miraculous power. No matter how big the trouble, she always straightened her back and dealt with it herself. That vitality, the refusal to bow to reality, could even give strength to the people around her. At last, Yuri realized that Eugene might feel the same way he did. To hide the way his own heart was stirred, he abruptly changed the subject. He even refused the butler's help. Looking out at the heavy rain beyond the window, he had already made up his mind. Some things he had to deal with personally. Eugene was just too rigid a person. He insisted on finding a chance to repay this debt of gratitude. Anna shook her head helplessly, thinking that this man really hated owing anyone anything. Then the conversation turned to the white shirt Eugene was wearing, and she learned that it belonged to his younger brother Yuri. That only made Eugene feel he owed even more. Looking at the Eugene before her, Anna could not help sighing. Compared with when they first met, he was like a completely different person. Not only did he apologize with astonishing speed, he had even nearly tried to take off his clothes in front of her just now. Anna said with a smile that what she envied most was how much Eugene cared for his younger brother. But Eugene suddenly lost that gentle expression, and his tone turned complicated. "Then you've truly misunderstood me. Taking care of my brother isn't because of love. It's only to lessen my guilt." In Eugene's eyes, Yuri had run away to escape harm, and he himself was the one who had hurt him most deeply. When Yuri returned to his room, he discovered that a shirt was missing from the wardrobe. Looking at the rain outside, he immediately guessed what had happened. That kind-hearted Anna must have lent the clothes to Eugene. Yuri gripped the empty hanger tightly, unable to hide the ache in his heart any longer. "Stop taking such good care of him. I was the one who fell for you first."